Hi, this is Mark Laughlin speaking for the Ambidextral Gunfighter. We have two sights here by Shield Sights out of the United Kingdom. Basically the same sight, but one is the RMSc, which is an aluminum housing. The other is the SMSc, which is the polymer housing. Let's get a quick unboxing and quick comparison between the two. Here we have your instructions. Some little tiny stickers. Don't go sticking them on your pistol or something else yet. Those have a different purpose. Here are your promotional stickers. Stick on your car or whatever. And here is the aluminum housing sight, the RMSc. Now we've got some other things in the box here. We have the battery, CR2032, I do believe. And you notice that familiar little sticker on the back of it. It's kind of like a little gasket that's on the back side of it. I think it would be fine without the gasket. If you replace the battery without the gasket, it'll be fine because that's the negative side of the battery. So if it grounds against your pistol, it'll be fine. It's just, I think, more or less a vibration buffer for the battery, maybe for the sight as well. So if you run out of these stickers, I think you could just use a little bit of cellophane tape or just, masking tape, or just about anything, a little bit of tape on there, just to provide a little bit of buffer against the frame of your slide of your pistol. Also in the box are two sets of screws or different lengths. We have Allen wrenches here, a small and a large. The large is for the screws, and the small is for this sight adjustment tool here, which this actually just fits right on the small wrench, and thereby this goes into the sight or the elevation or windage adjustment screw, and then basically you have your marks for minute of angle on there, so you can make the adjustments, because these don't really have a click like on some optics. They're not clickable, like a quarter minute of angle per click. These are it's just kind of a steady movement from one to the other. So that's the RMSc and unboxing. Let's do a quick comparison to the SMS version. So we'll just fast unbox this one, just get away all the other stuff. Already seen that. Everything else is the same, identical. Set that aside. So now we have our two sights. This is the RMSc and this is the SMSc, aluminum housing, polymer housing. Let's compare the weight between the two. So we'll get our scale here. And the weight of the SMSc is 12 grams. And the weight of the RMSc is 16 grams. So a 4-gram difference. Now you might think that that's, for carrying, of course, that's not a significant difference by any means. But these are sitting on top of a reciprocating slide. So 4 grams difference over, say, maybe 100 or 200,000 rounds of firing may prove to be a little bit more reliable, less likely to cause a malfunction than the heavier aluminum version. Now the advantage of the aluminum version is that the width, it is a bit narrower. We get our calipers here. It is 0.945 inches wide. That's because with aluminum we can reduce the thickness of that window frame there. On the polymer framed, the SMSc, it's just a little tiny bit wider. It is get it its widest part there. Looks like about 1 inch wide. So it's just a little bit wider, and what that means is that when you're shooting with both eyes open, with the narrower framed aluminum window frame there, it's going to be maybe a little bit easier for that frame to kind of disappear and ghost away than perhaps the polymer version, which is just a little tiny bit thicker. So that's just a quick rundown of the comparison between the RMSc and the SMSc. Another advantage is that the polymer version is about $50 cheaper. $50 United States. It's a little bit cheaper. All right, hi, this is Mark Laughlin speaking for the Ambidextral Gunfighter. We're going to mount our shield sights RMSc on our Sig P365XL. So first we'll remove the slide. Just to save us a little bit of weight, we'll go ahead and get the recoil spring and the barrel out. Now basically, like unlike the Hellcat, which has the screws coming in from the top, just like they would be for the sight itself, on the Sig P365XL, the screws come in from the back side, at least for holding this plate on, and the rear sight. So, two little screws right in here. Okay, see the rear sight fell off, so more screws are loose. Now the cover plate will come out, has a little tab in the front that engages there. Set that aside, set aside the original screws and the rear sight. All right, you may have noticed, I don't know if you noticed, but these are little, very small 3mm metric screws. The screws that come with the shield sights are 4mm. So none of these are actually going to work on the 365XL. So you're gonna, these will work fine with the Hellcat and most other pistols, but the way that Sig has attached that cover plate with these little tiny screws, and then I guess they needed to save, because they're coming from the bottom here, they needed to save space. They went with these little tiny 3mm. So you're gonna have to go to the local hardware store and pick up some 3mm M3s by say 8 or M3 by 10s. You'll want the button head screws, which are very similar to like these, but smaller. All right, so now we'll mount the shield sight. This is an RMSc. Place the battery in the battery compartment. Kind of clicks into place there a little bit. And now the sight is on. And you can see on the slide, we've got these raised points which basically engage with the sight. And it sits in there pretty well, just like that. And now we'll make use of I'm going to try the 8mm screws. And one thing I do want to check, because these are smaller screws, am I going to need washers in there? I think I'm going to be okay. I did buy washers in case I wanted to run a little bit, some washers on it, but I think these button head screws will be just fine. So now let's add just a tiny dab of Loctite onto these screws. These are small screws, so it doesn't take much. Normally what you'll want to do is apply the Loctite and actually let it dry before you put them in. But I know most people like, and because I'm not going to wait, I'm just going to go ahead and put them in wet. I don't know if there's these are actually these M3x8s are coarse thread. I don't know if you'll run into this. I didn't see any fine thread. I would have bought them because I wasn't sure which it would be, but I just got the coarse thread because that's all they had, and fortunately they worked. So if you have the option, you're going to want the M3 by say 8 coarse thread. You can run 10s in it. You've got plenty of depth there. It's the full depth of the slide. So now you can see we've got the RMSc mounted on the slide. And there we go. We can see our, briefly saw our dot there. Stays on all the time. So reassemble. And there we have it, Sig P365XL with the RMSc sight mounted. Now you see the RMSc has a little notch here, so that way you can use the kind of like backup iron sights, I guess, so to speak. Now one thing to keep in mind is a lot of people think when you're shooting that you need to line up both kind of the dot along with the iron sights. And that's not the case. That dot can be anywhere in this window, and as long as it's on your target, you'll hit it. Now we'll move on to zeroing, and what we'll do here initially is we're going to use a training laser, and I would like to use the Mantis X10 Elite, because what I like to do is, you know, put the training laser in. So we got our training laser, and ideally I would like to mount the Mantis X10 Elite on here. I don't have an adapter for this, and the reason is as you fire your groups, what you want to do is check your Mantis score, and if your Mantis score, you know, for moving the pistol isn't say 90 or 95 or better, don't count that shot. And that way, I mean, so many people, when they go do their zeroing, they go, oh, this thing's shooting low and to the left if you're shooting right-handed, low and to the left. Or if you're shooting left-handed, people will find us shooting low and to the right. And it's not, oftentimes, it's not an issue with the pistol being zeroed, it's that pushing forward, and a lot of people, you really can't detect that minute amount of pushing forward. Mantis X10 will detect that and let you know with the poor score. So zero with a score of 90 or 95 and higher, and chances are you'll find that I mean, these are 4 MOA dots, so chances are you're going to find that these are going to be pretty close to being zeroed, right, you know, close enough to zero right out of the box. And then go to the range. You know, there's a lot of debate on how far to zero out. My view is to go ahead and zero this for 25 yards, because in my view, the gunfighting continuum is going to be the close retention, hand over the top of the slide, elbows up like you're doing a rebound in basketball. And I'll include a link down in the description on some guys that advocate that or are arguing for this. And then from there, if you get a little more distance, it's point shooting from the hip. A little more distance, you can point shoot just straight out from the arm. And then when you get that, only like 15 to 20% of the time in self-defense situations are you going to get to the point where you actually go to the two-handed hold and are actually using that sight. And that's probably going to be around, you know, 20 to 25 yards. You can actually do that. So I would say zero this for 25, and it's, you know, at closer ranges, if you can make use of your sights, it's going to be you know, just fine. Just a little bit, it'll be a little bit high. Now, one thing you can do for your initial zeroing, even before we even fire a shot or even fire a dry fire shot with our training laser, is you can use the iron sights, which you presumably already have are zeroed, so to speak, presumably from the factory came zeroed. But use your iron sights, check to see if the dot is co-witnessing with your iron sights, and then make adjustments from there. So on this particular pistol, I can see that using the iron sights that the dot is over to the left. So I need to move the dot to the right. So we'll use our little mini dial here. Or if you move it counterclockwise, it's going to turn your dot, move your dot up or your dot to the right. Okay, so we can see if I can manage to get the dot, allow you to see the co-witnessing of the dot in the rear sight. Okay, so there you can see the dot is co-witnessing with the rear sight, and by using the training laser, I'm able to see that the hits are just the point of impact of the laser is slightly below the dot, which is what I would expect here in our studio with the shooting at about 7 yards, be a little bit low. So basically the firing coming out of the muzzle is, the line of sight here is above the muzzle, so it's coming up to meet the point of aim. Point of impact is coming up to meet point of aim, and being at 7 yards, this will the point of impact is going to be a little bit low, and then out when we get to the range, when we can test this at 25 yards, we should be pretty close. Should be pretty close. I think it looks pretty nice. One thing I do like about the RMSc as opposed to the SMSc is just that skeletonized brace there. I think it just looks a little bit more elegant. Gives you a nice handhold, I guess, although this has pretty good slide serration, so it's not a problem for this pistol, but for if we mount one of these on the Hellcat, it'd be nice to have that RMR to work the slide when you got bloody hands. Now, when we get to the range, my philosophy of how the red dot should be used, coming from point shooting and ambidextrous point shooting, is, and with our continuum of from close, basically hand-to-hand retention, two-handed retention, to shooting from the hip, to shooting from extended point shooting, to all the way up to the full sighted thumbs forward grip. That you're basically going to maintain a target focus, and that's good. I know for decades the whole modern technique has been front sight focus and let the target blur out, which is fine if you're got the time and distance that allows you to do the sighted technique. But under a true self-defense situation where your body's physiological response to a threat is going to be, among other things, is to focus intently on the target. And so this advantage of the red dot is that you'll better maintain that throughout your continuum of technique, you'll always remain focused on the target. So when you're point shooting, you're still just focusing on the target and you're pointing the pistol proprioceptically, that is using your body to aim, not your eyes. Now once you're able to come up and do a two-sided hold, you still maintain that intent focus on the target, focus on where you want to hit on that target, and bring the pistol up to eye level and just let that red dot appear almost like it's a laser on the target. Don't do, you know, for people who are used to the front sight focus technique, the modern pistol technique, and I say modern as in not necessarily being better than Rex Applegate's point shooting technique, but for those who have trained with the front sight focus technique, you're going to have to learn to move away from that and switch to that, maintaining that target focus and letting this housing to just kind of blur away like a ghost ring sight. And what the effect will be with both eyes open is it will look, your brain will assemble both images of both eyes, and it's going to look like there's almost like you have a laser, like if you have one of those lasers that mounts underneath the pistol here. So it's going to look like a laser on the target when you're using both eyes open, focusing on the target. Don't transition to back. It's tempting for people who've trained with the front sight focus technique to, when they're even using these red dot optics, to switch back and kind of bring their ocular focus back on this, trying to focus on maybe the dot or the sights, or trying to combine the sights and the red dot, just kind of ignore the iron sights. Wherever that dot is at in the window, that's where it's going to hit. It could be out, you could be even off to the very far edge, and as long as that dot's on the target, it's going to hit there. So it could be up there and it's going to hit right there. Doesn't have to be centered. A quick trip to the range to confirm our dry zero at 25 yards. Things started off really good with a good improvement in groups, but then things suddenly deteriorated.
I think it's way low. Try it high.
Since we generally train for point shooting, we assumed that we were just sucking with the sighted shooting. At one point, I did bring out my Kel-Tec P17 just to confirm that we didn't suck that bad. Turns out, we didn't suck that bad, nor did the sight suck, but rather that my mounting of the sight sucked, as we found that it had come loose. This does bring me to where I wish the sight came with the M3 by 8mm button head screws needed for the P365XL, and that I didn't have to go to the local hardware store to buy them.
Still very low. Was it 1, 2, 3, say 4 inches? So at 25 yards, that'd be 16 minutes of angle.
The Sig P365XL is a very popular pistol in the USA. I wondered about the quality of the screws we purchased at the local home improvement big box store. They look good, but M3 does look quite a bit smaller than M4, and I was loath to over-tighten them on my son's Sig, fearing that I'd strip out the slide or strip out the hex socket. The instruction booklet for the shield sights makes no mention of proper torque for the screws. Not the included M4s, much less the M3s we had to use on the Sig. The shield sights video channel made no mention of torque settings either. I suspect that the M3s should be torqued to about 20 inch-pounds, which is probably about half that of the M4s. This is not a lot of torque, so be careful if using a tool with any leverage. So either I failed to properly estimate my torque by hand, or the Loctite had not yet dried, or maybe the sight just needed some settling onto the stud flange. Either way, take care to properly torque the screws, allow the Loctite to dry, preferably before installing, and then check things again after a couple of magazines of live fire. We have several more videos in this series on pistol micro dots, including a review of the Shield RMSc and SMSc once we get a lot of range time on them. I do think our target-focused point shooting background and our how to become an ambidextral gunfighter trained eyes does give us a boost in adapting to these micro RMRs. We will see. So far, I'm very impressed with the quality of Shield sights. Mark Laughlin speaking for the Ambidextral Gunfighter. Please like, share, and subscribe.